My name is Piper Murphy. I'm 35 years old, and until one ordinary evening, I thought I was in a stable, adult relationship. It's strange how endings rarely arrive with raised voices or slammed doors. Sometimes they come disguised as laughter. We were sitting on the couch that night, Evan and I, the TV murmuring in the background like white noise. Some rerun, neither of us was watching. My legs were tucked beneath me. His arm rested along the back of the couch, close enough to touch me, but not touching. That detail mattered later. I asked a simple question. How was dinner with Lena? Lena was his ex-girlfriend. For the last 6 months, Evan had been seeing her occasionally. Closure dinners, catch-up coffees, that's what he called them. Once a month. Predictable, controlled, or so he said. Each time I told myself I was being mature. Each time I swallowed the discomfort and reminded myself that adults could be friends with their pasts. But that night was different. He'd come home smelling like a specific cologne, sharp, familiar. I'd smelled it before, on his jacket weeks ago, and ignored it then. I didn't ignore it now. I wasn't looking for a fight. I wasn't even accusing him of anything. I just wanted a straight answer. Evan turned toward me slowly, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Not warmth, not reassurance. Amusement. Then he laughed. Not awkward laughter, not nervous laughter. Real laughter. Funny how you get jealous whenever I see my ex, he said, shaking his head like I'd just told a bad joke. Maybe that means you're not girlfriend material. The words hung there. I didn't react the way he expected. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't demand explanations. I stared at the wall behind his head, noticing a faint crack in the paint I'd never seen before. Not girlfriend material. It wasn't an insult. It was a verdict. Evan waited. I could feel it. He expected a plea, a defense, some emotional labor that would reassure him he still had control of the narrative. I gave him nothing. After a few seconds, his smile faded. He huffed, stood up, and walked toward the bedroom, slamming the door behind him, hard enough to rattle the picture frames. I stayed on the couch. I didn't follow. I didn't call after him. I replayed the sentence in my head instead. Not girlfriend material. And somewhere between the echo of his laughter and the quiet hum of the TV, I realized something. He was right. I wasn't material for a boyfriend like him. So I was done. The next morning, Evan was gone before I woke up. No note, no message, just an empty space on the dresser where his watch usually sat. He probably expected me to spend the day spiraling, questioning myself, drafting apology texts, wondering how to win him back. Instead, I got dressed and drove to a storage unit across town. I bought 12 large cardboard boxes. By noon, I was back in the apartment, opening closets, drawers, shelves, methodically separating what was his from what was mine. I didn't rush. I wrapped his ceramic mugs in newspaper. I placed his watches in padded boxes. I folded his clothes neatly, like I was packing for someone I no longer knew. By 4:00 p.m., 12 boxes were sealed and stacked by the front door. Only then did I take out my phone. The next step was important and irreversible. At 4:07 p.m., I stood in the middle of the living room and looked around like I was seeing the apartment for the first time. The place was quieter without Evan's mess. Not the obvious kind. The shoes kicked off near the door, the hoodie slung over the chair. I mean the invisible kind. The weight of him, the constant background awareness that my comfort had always been conditional. I picked up my phone again, thumb hovering over the screen. Lena's address wasn't hard to find. Months earlier, Evan had brought in the mail and tossed a holiday card onto the counter like it meant nothing. Lena's mom still sends these, he'd said, rolling his eyes, like he was above it. I'd put the card into a drawer with the other clutter, coupons, takeout menus, random keys that didn't match anything, because I didn't want to admit that I noticed how carefully he'd opened it. Now I retrieved it like a piece of evidence. The address was printed neatly on the envelope in looping handwriting, the kind that always looked too confident. I typed it into a courier service site. Same-day premium delivery. The total flashed on the screen. $227. I didn't flinch. People always think revenge looks like screaming, smashing plates, throwing clothes onto the street. But I didn't want chaos. I wanted a message that couldn't be twisted. I paid for the courier. A confirmation email arrived at 4:15 p.m. with a tracking number. I printed the receipt, walked back into the living room, and placed it on the coffee table like a signature at the bottom of a contract. Then I sat down. No dramatic soundtrack, no tears, just the quiet ticking of the wall clock and the faint smell of cardboard. It was almost peaceful, until 7:03 p.m. when my phone lit up. Evan calling. I watched it ring. Let it go to voicemail. A moment later, the voicemail notification appeared, and I pressed play. His voice was tight, frantic, like the apartment was on fire and I was the one holding the matches. Piper, what the hell? Where's all my stuff? What did you do? This isn't funny. Call me back right now. The word funny almost made me smile. He truly couldn't imagine a world where I didn't exist to be managed. The calls kept coming. I ignored them all. Then came the texts, one after another, like a wave hitting the shore. Confusion first, then rage, then threats. Evan, are you serious? Evan, this is insane. Evan, Piper, answer me right now. Evan, if you did something to my stuff, I swear. Evan, you can't just lock me out. I live there. I read each message without replying. It felt like watching a storm through thick glass. He wanted engagement, emotion, argument, a hook to grab onto. I gave him silence. That night, I ordered pizza and ate it straight from the box. Not because I was hungry, because it reminded me that I was still functioning. I slept better than I had in weeks. The next day, the real fireworks didn't come from Evan. They came from an unknown number. I answered, put it on speaker, and opened the voice recorder app without thinking. I don't know why I did it. Instinct, maybe? Or maybe some part of me had already accepted this was going to become a story people would try to rewrite. A woman's voice sliced through the line. I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing, she snapped. No hello, no pause. But you can't just throw Evan out on the street. He has rights. He lives there. You have to let him back in to get his things. I already knew who it was. Diane, Evan's mother. She had the kind of voice that sounded like she'd never been told no in her entire life. I waited until she finished, like I was listening to an unimportant voicemail message about a missed delivery. Then I spoke. Good morning, Diane, I said calmly. Evan's things have been delivered. He should check with Lena. As for him living here, I suggest you review the lease agreement for apartment 4B. A sharp inhale. What does the lease have to do with anything? She demanded. It has everything to do with it, I replied. Evan is not, and has never been, on the lease. Silence. I could practically hear the calculation happening in her head, the scramble for a new angle. That's ridiculous, she snapped. He paid rent. No, I corrected her, still calm. He transferred money to my account to help with expenses. The rent and utilities have been paid exclusively from my bank account. I have receipts for every month. Her breathing turned heavy, anger simmering into something uglier. You'll be hearing from our lawyer, she hissed, then hung up. I didn't shake. I didn't panic. Because this wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was a door Evan had left unlocked the day we moved in together. Back then it had felt like support, like love. Evan had just started a new job and his credit was a mess. The landlord wanted a clean application, so I'd signed a loan. It's temporary, Evan had promised, just until I'm stable. But stability never came. And I never pushed him to fix it because, honestly, some part of me liked having something that was mine. Now it was my shield. The lease had a guest clause, Section 7, subsection C, the kind of boring legal detail most people skim right past. But I'd read it fully the night before. Occupancy by any single guest was limited to 14 consecutive days without written consent from the landlord. Long-term guests had to be formally added. Evan had been a guest for 2 years. And I had never asked for consent. That meant my landlord, Mr. Henderson, could have made my life miserable if this turned into a fight. So I didn't wait. I opened my laptop, drafted an email. To Mr. Henderson. Subject, guest departure notification, apt 4B. I kept the tone polite, neutral, professional. Dear Mr. Henderson, this is to inform you that my long-term guest, Evan Carter, has permanently vacated the premises as of yesterday, September 10th. Per our lease agreement, I remain the sole occupant of the apartment. Please let me know if you require any further documentation. Best, Piper Murphy. I stared at the date before sending. September 10th. It mattered. Details always matter. I hit send at 11:32 a.m. and immediately took a screenshot because I was done trusting people to remember things correctly. Less than an hour later, Mr. Henderson replied. Short, formal, perfect. Thank you for the notification. Your file has been updated accordingly. I screenshotted that too. Then I sat back in my chair, heart steady, and realized something strange. Evan had always called me cold when I didn't perform emotions on command. But this wasn't cold. This was clarity. For 2 days it was quiet. No calls from Diane, no lawyer letters, no banging on the door. For a brief moment, I thought maybe they'd realize they couldn't bully me into undoing what was done. Then Thursday night my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, one of our mutual friends. Sarah, Hey, can I call you? Something's come up. The knot in my stomach formed instantly. Not because I was scared, because I knew what was coming. When people can't reach you directly, they go for your reputation. And Evan, sweet, charming Evan, was the kind of man who didn't just want to win. He wanted to make sure I looked crazy for leaving. Sarah called almost immediately after I texted back, sure. Her voice was hesitant, careful, like someone stepping onto thin ice. Piper, I don't want to be in the middle of this, she said, but Evan's been posting some really alarming stuff in the group chat. The room felt colder. I stayed quiet. He's saying you had some kind of breakdown, she continued, that you screamed at him, threw him out with nothing, that you've been controlling him for months. There it was. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. Do you believe him? I asked. A pause, too long to be comforting. I don't know, Sarah admitted. It doesn't sound like you, but he's convincing. He's saying you were tracking his phone, that you threatened him. I thanked her for telling me and ended the call before my voice could betray me. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself publicly, because this was the trap. Smear campaigns don't work because the lies are good. They work because denials look emotional. Instead, I asked Sarah for screenshots. She hesitated, then sent them. The group chat was called The Circle. 7 of us. Years of shared birthdays, holidays, inside jokes. Now it was full of Evan's performance. I'm honestly scared. She was like a different person. I didn't even get my things. I think she burned some of my stuff. Tear emojis, heart reactions, supportive replies. Emily and Ben rushed in with sympathy. Mark said little, just neutral responses, emojis instead of words. The most dangerous lie was the one about screaming, because the truth was simple. I hadn't raised my voice once. I needed proof that didn't require belief. So I built it. I sent a private message, not to the group, but to Mark and Sarah, the ones who still thought before reacting. I attached 3 things. First, a screenshot of a text Evan had sent a month earlier. He'd told me he was having dinner with Sarah. He wasn't. He was with Lena. Second, the courier receipt. 12 boxes, same-day delivery, signature confirmation. Third, the last text he'd sent me before everything ended. I put it beside one of his group chat messages claiming I was controlling. Evan, stop being insecure. It's not attractive. Lena and I are just friends. If you can't handle it, that's your problem. Then I wrote 1 sentence. I never screamed. I never threatened him. I didn't throw anything away. I took him at his word and sent him and his belongings to the person he clearly preferred. I turned my phone off. The next morning, Mark replied, Wow, just wow, we had no idea. I'm sorry. Sarah followed. I'm embarrassed we even questioned you. We're staying out of it, but we support you. Emily and Ben never reached out. The group fractured quietly. No explosions, no announcements. Just absence. Evan had overplayed his hand. He assumed I would panic. He forgot I document everything. A week passed. The apartment felt lighter. I moved furniture, bought a new rug, threw out the lavender candles he loved and I hated. Peace settled in. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I already knew. Hello? I answered. Diane's voice slid through the speaker, sweet, syrupy. Piper, dear, I know things have been tense, but we have a situation. I listened. There's a family heirloom, she said softly. Evan's great-grandmother's pearl necklace. It's priceless. We think it may have been left behind. Could we just come by 5 minutes to look? My blood went cold. This wasn't about jewelry. It was about access. Once inside, Evan could refuse to leave, claim tenancy, start over. I couldn't say no outright, so I set a trap. I'll check my security footage, I said calmly. If he wasn't wearing it when he left, then maybe it's here. Silence. Then a forced laugh. Oh, you have cameras. Yes, I said, for security. I hung up. Pulled up the footage. 8:12 a.m. There he was, Evan, stepping out the door. And there it was. The pearl necklace. Clear, undeniable. I clipped the video, zoomed in, emailed. Diane, 1 sentence. Good news. The necklace wasn't left behind. See attached. No reply. Not ever. That was checkmate. But the story wasn't over yet, because a month later I got a text. From Lena. Hey, you don't know me well, but thanks. That delivery saved me. I stared at the screen. The last echo of a relationship I was finally free from. I stared at the message from Lena for a long moment before responding. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I hadn't expected closure to arrive from her. After everything. After the laughter, the lies, the smear campaign, the fake heirloom, somehow this was the most unsettling part. The idea that the woman I'd been quietly competing with in my own relationship had been just as manipulated as I was. I typed slowly. Piper, I'm sorry you got dragged into this. I hope you're okay. The reply came almost immediately. Lena, it was the lot. He showed up that night furious, said you'd lost it. Then he tried to move into my spare room like it was already decided. It took me 2 weeks to get him out. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. 2 weeks. That meant the fantasy Evan had been selling, to me, to his friends, to his mother, had collapsed the moment it was forced into reality. Lena, I know this might sound strange, but your boxes were the wake-up call. Seeing all his stuff arrive like that, it made something click. I realized how much chaos followed him everywhere. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, phone warm in my hand. Piper, I never meant to hurt you. There was a pause this time. Then her final message arrived. Lena, you didn't. You freed both of us. That was it. No apologies. No shared trauma bonding. No awkward attempt at friendship. Just truth acknowledged. I didn't reply again. I didn't need to. I blocked Evan's number that same night. Blocked Diane's too. Not out of anger. Out of completion. Later, I poured myself a drink. Nothing dramatic, just a small glass of whiskey, and sat by the window as the city lights flickered on one by one. The apartment was quiet. Not the heavy, watchful quiet of before. The honest kind. For a long time, I'd thought strength looked like endurance, putting up with discomfort, swallowing disrespect, calling it maturity. I'd been wrong. Strength was recognizing the moment someone told you exactly who they were and believing them. Evan hadn't broken up with me. He'd sentenced himself out of my life. All I'd done was carry out the terms. I finished my drink, turned off the lights, and went to bed in a space that finally felt like my own. No lies left to expose, no doors left to close,